is the same thing.
Okay.
He's a powerful guy, but he don't have that many powerful offers, but he got FBS stuff. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So 1 and 2s were prefer, and this is our rubric, were automatic offers. So I said, you know what? I mean, I woke up. Honest to God truth, I woke up after I prayed about it, and then I was talking, just listening to Coach Davey, going through the whole process. He didn't rush me or nothing. He was like, man, the scholarship gonna be on the table, the sign the day, take your time. And I like that. I woke up, I like, man, I'm gonna go to Notre Dame. And boom, the rest was history. I just went to Notre Dame, bro.
That's crazy. Because Notre Dame, my worst visit too.
Yeah. They're great athletes, and some of them are probably better athletes than we were, but they're mental midgets.
What is the biggest difference that you see between the FCS school players and environment from your experiences as a D1 player in that environment?
Two things before I get to the players. The biggest difference between a HBCU, you know what I mean, and an FBS program, whether it's a high-level FBS program or a low-level FBS program, is the funding.
All right, welcome. We have a treat from you, one of my homeboys, much respected in the game, a 10-year high school veteran coach coming out of Atlanta. He was a 3-star, if you will, because they were kind of just starting that whole star rating. So probably today he'd be a 4 or 5-star, but coming out 3-star athlete at Atlanta, Georgia, currently Southern University. And I'm going to let him give us a technical name, but a Southern University wide receiver coach and has been a collegiate coach for a long time now. I want everybody to welcome to the show, Mr. Quentin Burrell. Quentin, talk to the people.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you for having me in the building, kinfolk.
Yes, sir. So let's jump right into it. High school days, you were a stud in Atlanta. Tell me about the competition back then in Atlanta, Georgia, because when we were coming up, Florida versus Georgia was always a thing. Florida players always respected Georgia. You always want to cross the line. You really wanted to be part of that Florida-Georgia chain game because Georgia to us was the second best football state. All right. So tell us about the high school days, man, playing in Georgia.
Man, playing in Georgia, man, it was a real treat, man. And what a lot of people don't really know was I went to middle school and high school in Georgia. I'm originally from Louisiana, but like I said, I went to middle school and high school in Georgia. My first 2 years in high school, I went to a high school called Forest Park High School. And I basically went there because the middle school that I went to was the feeder school, and I wanted to go there with my buddies, with my friends. Okay. So after my sophomore year, I kind of started witnessing man, why all the top, really black kids at the high school not getting no opportunities to go to the next level. So, man, come to find out, man, the coach at the time was kind of like blackballing the black kids on purpose or whatever. I mean, not going to JUCO or nothing. You know what I mean? Okay. So my mom kind of did some digging. That's all I always respect about my mom. She's real low key, but she gonna do her information. And she found out some stuff that she didn't really too much care for. So I ended up transferring high schools to going into my junior year to Southwest DeKalb High School. And at the time, Southwest DeKalb was probably one of the premier powerhouses in the city. And it was an all-black high school. So I transferred there my junior year. And, by this time, my 9th through 11th grade year, I was just a offensive guy. I only played receiver and quarterback pretty much my whole career. I get to Southwest DeKalb High School, we running a doggone wing tee. And that was totally different for me. We was a run and shoot at my previous high school. So, the competitor that I am, I'm like, man, I'm trying to get on the field. And we throwing the ball like 5 times a game. I'm like, man, this ain't gonna work because I'm coming from an atmosphere where we was throwing it 50 plus. Yep. So I asked the head coach and I asked the secondary coach at the time after like the second week of practice, man, because I'm like, man, I ain't used to this, being on the sideline. I said, man, coach, you mind if I, try to play some DB? I'm just trying to get on the field to help the team out. So the secondary coach was like, yeah, man, you know what I'm saying? I see you got some ball skills, transfer, blah, blah, blah. We'll throw you in the mix, tomorrow, see what you can do. Okay. So that next day comes, man, we throwing 7-on-7. Coach was like, man, get out there and go to safety. So he put me at safety. Of course, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I just looked at it as, shoot, I play receiver, ball in the air, I'm gonna get it. First play, I get a pick. I hear one of the coaches on the sideline say, "Oh shit!" So he said, "Hey, so the next time we go out there, he threw me in that corner."
Right.
I kid you not. The next play, he throws me in that corner. I get another pick. So I hear
Just like
the
that.
coach I hear the coach say again, "Oh hell no, this is we finna win." He said, so I get to the sideline and he put his hands around my shoulder. He said, "Yeah, young buck." He said, "Your offensive day's over with." So from that
Done.
point forward, that's when I started playing defensive back my junior year. And fast forward the end of my junior year, I had 10 interceptions and was an all-state defensive back. But that was actually my first time ever playing defensive back. And rest was history. Been an all-state. My junior, senior year, all region, blah, blah, blah. And, kind of wrote my own story, man. And, just I was appreciative of the opportunity that, some coaches gave me opportunity because, some coaches like, nah, man, stay on offense, blah, blah, blah. But, man, shoot, had some great accolades, all state, was able to, be a quote unquote, I guess maybe a 4 or 5 star now or whatever. And shoot, man, went to Notre Dame and shoot, the rest was history.
And what's crazy is when we was coming out, like all county and all state was the thing to be. Like first you wanted to make sure that you was it was huge.
Yes.
You wanted to make sure you was all county lined up against everybody else that you played against. So they was talking about.
Yep.
All county came out. It was somewhat low key. It was bigger than all state because you knew everybody in the county and everybody in the county knew you. So It was kind of like, yo, you know what? You don't know everybody in the state. You know what I mean? So you make all state. It's awesome, but it ain't like all county because them your peers.
Correct.
Right? So, hey, I don't even hear kids talk about all county no more. All county, all state no more. It's crazy.
Like you said, it's crazy because like you grew, like you said, everybody knew everybody in your county. And a lot of times y'all might have worked out together or, you know what I mean, just kind of grew up together, whatever. So like that was a big deal being all county because like you said, it was your peers and y'all knew each other. Y'all grew up around each other. And the competition was always, when you around your peers, it's always going to be this. And at the end of the day, y'all going to shake hands. But when y'all in between them white lines, y'all going at it like some dogs. You know what I mean? Like y'all rivals. But that was being all county and then more from the all state, man, that was huge, like you said, man, because especially, you been in Hillsborough and I've been in DeKalb County, that was a heavily saturated area to where the talent pool was big, man. So all the college coaches would come down there to recruit because like they say now, they wanted them dogs, so that's where they went, But yeah, that was all county was a big deal in the city, man.
It was no surprise to have 7, 8, 9 college coaches at a spring practice for us.
Yep.
Like they come through in the daytime, you speak to them, they come through the school, they shuffle them through the school, and then you see 3 or 4 of them on the sideline talking, and 5 or 6 of them end up showing up because, interestingly enough, I was talking to our county athletic director, and my freshman year, which is the year before yours, my freshman year, it was only 15 public high schools in Hillsborough County, only 15. My senior year, I think we ended at 18 my senior year. So my freshman year in high school, bro, we were 3,500 kids strong in the high school at Hillsborough. Oh yeah, bro. Oh yeah. If you didn't make the 2 deep, if you ain't make the 2 deep roster, you better start looking someplace else, bro. You ain't gonna play as many kids as we had. Oh yeah, man. So
how many were on the team? On your team?
I would probably say back then, I don't know. Don't get me the line. I'd say anywhere between 60, 70. We had a big JV team also. We had a lot of JV kids. We were the premier school at that time. Right. And it was just, you knew the competition around you. You knew the dogs they had at Tampa Catholic. You knew what they had at Chamberlain. You knew what they had over there at Robinson. You know what I mean? Those are the schools back then. So when you made all county, I don't care if it was honorable mention. If your name was up there with the rest of the dudes you knew in that time, you was all right. You poke your chest out a little bit.
Right.
Now tell me, all right. So you coming from the A, highly black community. You go take your visits. What visits did you take for your college visits? You get recruited.
So of course, like the landscape has changed drastically, man. I took all 5 of my visits you know, before I even end up committing to Notre Dame. So
Right.
honestly, man, when I was going through the process, you know, we from down south. So, you know, my high school coach was very good and instrumental in telling me to, man, like, you know, take your time, but also, you know, if you can, take a out of region visit. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because he always
Okay.
was big on, you know, open your eyes to different stuff. So, you know, Notre Dame was going to be one of my out of region visits. But besides Notre Dame,
Okay.
everything was, you know, down south. So my first visit I took was to LSU. I did that
Okay.
during the season of my senior year, and partly, you know, because LSU was high on my list because I'm originally from Louisiana. You know, my
Right.
whole family's from there. So I'm like, shoot, man, I'm gonna go to LSU. You know, especially they offered me. So I'm like, man, honestly, I was gonna go there, commit there. It was gonna be a no brainer. But
Right.
when I went down there, and I respect it now because I'm an adult and I see the big picture, especially coaching now. But when I went down there, Nick Saban was a turd, bro. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He was a straight butthole. But I
Right.
understood now that I'm grown where he was coming from. He was a business model guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
We want you, but we don't need you. So, you know, LSU was my first visit. I went there by myself because my mom worked 2 jobs, so she really couldn't go on a visit like that with me. So I ended
Okay.
up not committing. He gave me 48 hours after my visit to make a
Okay.
decision. And I was like, Coach, you know, I got to talk to my people, and I would like to take another visit if I can. He was like, you can take another visit if you can. He said, but we're going to move on. He said, you
Right.
got 48 hours to make a decision. I was like, damn, you know what I mean? So I went
Mm-hmm.
back home, talked to my people about it, prayed about it, and I moved on. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
the following week, end up going to Alabama. Went to Alabama, loved the Alabama visit. But at the time, they
Mm-hmm.
were getting ready to go through the probation deal with you know, Natron Means and all them guys who had got into that little issue. So I
Right.
ended up not going there. And then I ended up taking my last 3 visits to Tulane, Georgia Tech, and Notre Dame was my last visit. And
Okay.
honestly, I just went to Notre Dame because I took my high school coach's advice and I wanted to just witness something different, you know.
Right.
And honestly, out of out of all 5 of the visits, Notre Dame was my worst visit. You know, you know, it was my worst visit. They lost my luggage when I got there, so I didn't get my luggage until that very next day. When I met y'all, like I had on the same stuff that I had on from the night before because Notre Dame didn't
Yeah.
have the airplane or whatever didn't get my stuff until the next morning.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, man, I'm already got sour grapes now because I'm like, man, I ain't got my clothes. You know what I'm saying? It's a bug. It's cold. You know what I mean? Yada yada yada. So, you know, but on that visit, I met you. I mean, you probably remember this. I met you in the weight room, and we
Okay.
talked. And you told me some real stuff. You know what I mean? So I was always a kid. Even now, I always put stuff in perspective. You know what I mean? Who was on my visit? Marcus,
Okay.
RG. Well, we're gonna probably say Ryan Grant, Marcus Wilson. Some of the
Yep.
top guys in the country that end up being like great friends. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Besides teammates, and I actually bonded with them there. So besides that, though, besides the camaraderie and just getting to know you guys, man, I was like, man, I ain't going no damn Notre Dame. Like this is, man, it's like 15 below. Feel like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm from down south. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. I get back home and I'm telling all my people, man, this was the worst visit. Blah blah blah. This, that, and the third. But the more and more it got close to signing day, it got down to pretty much Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. Georgia
Okay.
Tech was on me tough, you know, and you know, I thought about it, but I was like, man, that's too close to home. Like I'm already from Atlanta. Like I don't know. If I want to go to college, I want to truly go to college and to get something, explore something new. You know what I
Right.
mean? That way I
Okay.
felt like just talking to the people that I could find it in, I would grow better, you know.
Okay.
So I prayed about it, man, and then I kept thinking, like, damn, even though Notre Dame was my worst visit, I'm gonna be on TV every week, you know what I
Yep.
mean? And then they sold my mom on the educational piece because that was big for her. So I
Yep.
said, you know what? I mean, I woke up. Honest to God, truth, I woke up after I prayed about it, and then I was talking, just listening to Coach Davey, you know, going through the whole process. He didn't rush me or nothing. He was like, man, the scholarship gonna be on the table to sign today. Take your time. And I like that. You know, I woke
Yeah.
up, I like, man, I'm gonna go to Notre Dame. And boom, the rest was history. I just went to Notre Dame, bro.
That's crazy. Cause Notre
Yeah.
Dame, my worst visit too.
Yeah.
I think it was like winter break or something when nobody on campus. Jeff Fain, the center, was my like host. Him and Javen Hunter was my host, man. Wasn't nobody there but us. It's snowing, man. I'm looking around like, dude, I got offers from everywhere, man. I don't
Yeah.
have to come here, man. And for real, I was trying to appease my mom to go to. I wanted to go to Virginia Tech. I'm like, man, let me take this
They
Notre
was
Dame.
rolling
My
then
mama,
too.
right? Virginia Tech was rolling. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Vic out there, like, come on,
Yep.
man. This they play 5 DBs every snap. I'm like, bro, I'm on the field, dog. So my mama wanted me to go take the visit Notre Dame. All right, man, I'm gonna take that visit, man. And then what's crazy is obviously nobody was on campus, but the feeling that it had with the history of the school, the blend of the academics, I could probably get on the field relatively quickly in a year. And I was like, yo, and I fell in love with Mick. Mick was up there also. And yep. So, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and pull this thing and boom. And that's how it wasn't anything fun about the visit. It wasn't anything fun about the visit. I can't remember watching them on TV when I was growing up. I may have watched one. Man, this Florida State, Miami country, dog. If y'all ain't playing them,
right.
that's it.
You right.
You know what I mean? So that was a big game. But now, tell me about the culture shock coming from Atlanta to Notre Dame.
Man, it was a huge culture shock from the simple standpoint that, like I said, the high school I went to was a pretty much all black high school. We had maybe, this is including faculty now, we probably had 20 white between students and teachers in the whole building. Everybody else was black. So I grew up in that type of culture, and basically going from all black to all white was a big culture shock for me because I wasn't used to it. Now I did. One caveat though is, I only went to the black high school 2 years. The previous high school and the previous middle school was probably about 60-40 black to white. But just going from one extreme to another was a big shock to me. And then just also just the, the class sizes my freshman year, that was kind of big, an adjustment. But like I said, man, it was big from a simple standpoint of I'm going from one extreme to the other. And it took me, honestly, it took me probably that whole year to get used to it. But one thing that I do credit my upbringing was being able to adapt to all my surroundings. So after that year, everything else was pretty smooth, but it was a big culture shock, just like I said, from a standpoint of I'm basically going from an all black high school to an all white school. You know what I mean? And it was different. It was definitely different, but I enjoyed the experience, to be honest with you.
And I'm gonna bring this full circle because the reason I set it up like that is that now, when you were going through that transition, you're a young adult. You're trying to find your way. You're developing, and now you're a grown adult, and you're coaching and you're mentoring at an HBCU. So now you've got your high school, how your high school was set up. You've got the environment that you play college ball and you're learning as a young adult in that college environment. Now you're a full-grown adult with responsibilities and you're mentoring young men at an HBCU. So now let's just bring this thing full circle. You're FCS school. What is the biggest difference that you see between the FCS school players and environment from your experiences as a D1 player in that environment?
Two things before I get to the players. The biggest difference between an HBCU, you know what I mean, and an FBS program, whether it's a high level FBS program or a low level FBS program, is the funding and lack of resources. That's the biggest issue. Because the culture, the pageantry, being at a HBCU, a premier HBCU at that, because some HBCUs are different, that's unmatched. And that's coming from somebody who played in front of 80,000+ every game. You know what I mean? But just the pageantry and the culture that you're amongst your people, like that, those atmospheres, I cannot even front. Those are very electric atmospheres. It's a true vibe when you're at a HBCU, a premier HBCU, because not all HBCUs are like that. But the lack of funding, and resources is an issue. You know, and I can't lie and say it isn't. It's a big issue, and I think that's one of the biggest difference besides, you know, from that aspect. Now, when you get to the players aspect, the biggest issue I see, well, it's not even an issue. The biggest difference that I see with the FBS guys compared to the FCS guys is, of course, is the interior line. You know, O line and D
Okay.
line is big difference, big huge
Okay.
difference.
Okay.
From a skill position standpoint, it's very competitive, and you have a
Okay.
lot of guys, honestly, that can play on the FBS level. They just might have been overlooked for whatever reason. It's not a big difference, to be honest with you. It's not a big difference. Now you're gonna get more kids that are a lot more raw and you know, need some tutelage from that standpoint, compared to some guys that are on the FBS level who are probably a little bit more ready made. But that's something that I embrace, and I think that as I continue to grow in this profession, because my ideal, I want to be on the FBS level, you know, because I mean, you played on that and on that level, you know, and I know that the type of impact that I can make. But I think being on this level has helped mold and shape me so much better to when I do get that opportunity, I'm going to flourish even more than I thought I would.
Absolutely. What has now? Let me back up. As you've developed as a coach and evolved as a coach, how has your philosophy changed as a coach?
The biggest thing for me is patience, man. I've become a lot more patient and a lot more, what's the word I want to look at? In tune with the development piece with these young men from an off the field standpoint. Because, you know, the biggest difference I see with this generation, which is what Generation Z, or I guess now, I don't know what, I think that Generation
Me either.
Z is, they're great athletes, you know, and some of them are probably better athletes than we were, but they're mental midgets.
Hmm.
And that's just coming from a standpoint of just being and interacting with these young men every day. And they really need true guidance, man, because a lot of them think they know, but they have no clue about this real world and how cold this real world can be. So I think the biggest thing from an on-field standpoint is just more patience with these guys, but an off-the-field standpoint of just, you know, really tapping in more with the developmental piece from a, you know, once that football deflates, like what's the plan for you? What are you going to do with your life if you don't go to the next level? You know, that's the biggest thing that I've learned as I continue to grow in this profession.
Now, do you think that they come in mentally weak because they're coddled
Yes.
when they come? They're the parents are. They think. Well, no. Here's one thing. we as parents, you think
Mm-hmm.
you're doing a good job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you think you're doing a good job, and it all kind of depends on the role model that you had before you that's showing you how to be quote unquote a good parent, relatively speaking. So a lot of times these kids come in and they've been somewhat sheltered in a sense where they don't have very many responsibilities. They're not exposed to a whole lot. It's hard for them to be critiqued and criticized from somebody other than their mom or their dad. So
Mm-hmm.
when another strong figure comes at them, they kind of they respond in a very weak manner
Mm-hmm.
because they don't know any better because what they grew up in has been very kind of sheltered. And when we say sheltered, we know we may think of some affluent family and they shelter. No. I'm talking about shelter period when they don't allow the village to help
Mm-hmm.
raise the kids, right?
Uh-huh.
That's totally different these days. They don't allow the village to help raise the kids. So now, again, I spoke a lot, but I want to throw this back in your lap. Do you think they come in mentally weak as young men because of their upbringing?
I do. I do. And I do. And it's a couple aspects I want to tap into. I agree
Okay.
exactly what you said because when we were growing up, it was more of a village. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you had different people besides just your parents that can tap into you and pour into you. You know, whereas now because society has changed so much, you know, you really can't do that because, you
Right.
know, just the whole world is different now. You know what I
Right.
mean? For whatever reason. So it's a lot of it doesn't have to do. It's not their fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because of how society and the world has changed and evolved. You know, so I agree with you on that piece. The next piece though is, I don't know if you can see this. This.
Yeah.
This to me has killed this current Gen Z or whatever generation that there is, because we didn't have this stuff. We had, the phones was really just starting to come about. We were
Yep.
still in beeper mode and all that,
Yep.
but our communication skills were better because we had to actually talk to people. You know what I mean? This generation, they're on their phone so much that they're looking for that like button. You know what I mean? So they don't have that if somebody click that dislike button, they telling you why they dislike you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So they're looking
Right.
for that in my opinion, that instant validation, that instant accreditation now, to where it's like, man, he liked my picture because I threw this touchdown, I caught this touchdown pass, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
they'll just throw, a lot of them just put their good stuff on Instagram, or just when they,
Right.
when they flashy, blah blah blah. But they don't get the critique from a standpoint of, all right, if I hit this dislike button, I'm telling you why. You know what I mean? So now all they want is the good stuff, but they don't want the negative stuff. But that's all that's on there. You see what I'm saying? So I
Okay.
think
So
that.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I
Take
just
that
think that.
phone.
Okay.
Take that phone. Let's
Mm-hmm.
progress this, right? So
Mhm.
you have to be in that recruitment space.
Right.
A lot of kids don't know how detailed and involved the recruitment research process is. So stay
Mm-hmm.
right there with that phone. How much do you guys dig into kids' social media profiles and postings when you're recruiting them and trying to look into their character, whether or not you want them to be a member of that team of yours?
It varies on each level, and it varies based on the head coach. I've been
Okay.
privileged enough to be up under two head coaches who want us to really tap into these kids off the field, to kind of
Okay.
see what they're about. And a lot of times we won't even tell the kids, like, I'm like, I ask you just out of casual conversation, hey, what's your Twitter, what's your IG, you know what I mean? And I get it,
Right.
and then I move on to something else. But later on that night, I'm finna see what you're about. I'm finna go through your history. I'm finna go through your old photos. You know what I'm saying? See what type of tweets you make. You know what I mean? To kind of see what type of kid that you might be. And for me, I really want to see what type of kid that you are when you're faced with adversity, because a lot of these kids, like I said, are super talented, but once they're faced with some adversity, a lot of them shut down. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they shut down bad. So it's
Right.
kind of like, you gotta know what you're possibly getting into. Especially when you're on a FCS level, because you don't have those resources. We don't have the mental health specialists, and you know what I'm saying, all that. We as coaches got to wear a lot of different hats. So for me, I have to tap into everything. I got to tap into your social media. I got to tap into your upbringing. I got to tap into okay, do you come from a one-parent household, two-parent household? All right. Do you come from a black neighborhood, or middle-class neighborhood, or you have all types of cultures in your neighborhood? Or do you come from a well-off, white, affluent area? You know what I mean? Because you got to know all that once this kid gets on your campus, and when he's faced with some adversity, which he's going to at some point, how is he going to respond? Is he going to be able to, all right, fight through this thing, with just maybe my pops or my mom, or his mom, they hating on me, or such and such. You got to tap into all that, because ultimately you got to know what you're getting into, because like I said, when you're not at an LSU, all right, we don't have those resources like a training table and all that. You know what I mean? Like you
Right.
got to get it out the mud,
Right.
so for me, those are the type of kids, not all of them now, not all, but those are the type of kids that I try to attract to our program, because they come from like areas. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't come from, these big weight rooms and all that. It might be decent size, you know what I mean? So when we show them our weight room, it's not a shock to them. Like, some of
Right.
them like, man, shoot, I just give me a couple benches, squat, you know what I mean? I'm good. But
Right.
some, they might turn their nose. And it comes, it comes with the ebbs and flows of recruiting. But for me personally, I try to get kids that's kind of, had that get it from the mud mentality, but it also becomes the type of environment that they come from.
Right.
Mm.
How much do the how much could a parent help and hurt their child's recruitment?
Whew, that's a good question. Um, That's a simple but complex question, to be honest with you. You know
Okay.
what I mean?
Okay.
Because I see that, I see some parents, whether they come from one parent households or two parent households, they try to live through their kids. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And to me, you shouldn't do that. Your kid is his own entity now. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now I do agree with, you got to give him some advice, as far as things he shouldn't do, things he should do. But some of these parents, man, you would think they trying to suit up and dress for the games, or trying to get recruited. You know what I mean? Because
You got a story on that? You got a good story on one of
man,
those?
you got some parents, that'll hit you up more than the kid. And it's like, man, I gave you my number I'm not recruiting you. I mean, I'm recruiting you, but I'm really recruiting your son. Like,
Right.
I'm not trying to, you know what I mean? What else, what they
Yeah.
gotta do, blah blah blah. Like, man, no, man, we're gonna recruit your son. If you will know, and as a parent, you will know if this college coach is really pursuing your kid. You know what I
Correct.
mean? And you're gonna know if he's not really pursuing your kid. So
Right.
that's one mistake I think parents make. They try to live vicariously through their kids, and some of them are better athletes than their parents, and some of them are not.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. You know, but on the other aspect, I do think that it's important for parents to give their kids sound advice from not just from an athletic standpoint, but from an academic standpoint as well. You know,
Okay.
because I think that a lot of these parents are just so focused on the ball part. But I think a lot of them are neglecting the educational piece. No matter what the world is saying now, and no matter what, even if you're a top recruit, like, and you're getting all this money at the University of Florida from an NIL standpoint and all that, but what about this financial literacy standpoint, to where, all right, if you're getting this money, how can you keep this money and how can you grow this money? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yep.
I think that that's an important piece that parents should tap into more. But I think that it's a kind of a give and take thing. I think that it's pros and cons with these parents. But I think honestly they should tap into more to the educational piece with these kids, no matter if they go into FBS or FCS school. But then also too, trying to keep their kids uh, internally motivated. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because like for me, what I mean by that is, okay, all right, let's say your son, all right, X going to Clark Atlanta, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm pretty sure X is grateful for the opportunity, but that's not ideally where he envisioned himself being, correct?
Mm. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So now I would flip it on X and be like, all right, if that's not where you really want to be, from an ideal standpoint, all right, you got to use it as motivation. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now you gotta flip this and put this on your back, to whereas, all right, I'm finna make these recruiters or scouts or whoever feel me, to whereas, I'm finna go to Clark, I'm finna rip this thing up, and I'm finna create more value for myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I put up good numbers. All right, who's to say? Because now, because the college landscape has changed so much, you ain't gotta stay at one school for no 4 years, 4 5 years.
Right.
You can
Right.
blow up at one school and go to another school, to a higher level school. For instance, we
Mm-hmm.
lost for the past 2 years. We lost our top two defensive backs to higher schools because they've recruited them. You know what I mean? They blew
Right.
up on our level, and now one's at Louisville, the others at the University of Houston. You know,
Okay.
and I think, and we have coaches, especially. I'm a younger coach, but I'm an older coach at the same time. I can't knock a kid for now going to another higher level school, because it's too much money on the table. Man, I don't know where this kid come from, man. He might
Right.
need this
Right.
opportunity to help feed his family, or he might need this opportunity to help, try to raise his draft stock, or whatever he's trying to do. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
my job is to tell him the pros and cons if he does leave. Let him base that decision on, all right, if he's going to leave, based on the advice I give and the sound advice that he might get from his parents or whoever he confides into, and let it go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still going to support him as much as I can, because I just don't think it's right for you to try to keep a kid at one institution and he feels that he can go somewhere better. You know what I mean? Now I think that the grass is always not greener on the other side, but that's up to him to decide that. You know,
Right.
but I don't think you should handcuff kids these days. Let them make that conscious decision based on, you know, where they want to go or whether they want to stay, based on their family, whoever they confide into, and then also the coaches that they trust.
What would be the one, if you had only one piece of advice that you can give every possible recruit that's going to come out, every high school recruit,
Mm-hmm.
they're starting the process. Schools are starting to sniff around them. The process is
Mm-hmm.
about to kick off for them, right? And you can only give out one piece of free advice. That's it. All right. That I need all of you guys to pay attention to, lock into, and execute.
Mm-hmm.
What would that piece of advice be?
Honestly, man,
Like, don't make this mistake, or
mm-hmm.
make sure you do this, or like, what would it be? And I know I threw you under the fire, but it just popped
Yeah.
into my head. I'm like, yo, they get so kids, and I'll talk while you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
They get so much from so many different places. They have so
Mm-hmm.
many different influences around them. It could be obviously their high school coach, their personal trainer, their 7-on-7 coach, the uncle who played ball, the neighbor down the street who was an past NFL. You know, they get so
Mm-hmm.
much, and they're trying to filter it all out to make sure they do everything correctly. But
Yeah, and it's a
evidently, they're
lot
going to
though.
drop the ball someplace,
Yeah, it's
right?
a lot. Mm-hmm.
But if they're going to drop the ball at some point, make sure you don't drop this ball. Do this part correctly.
Yeah. I would say the biggest advice, just from an athletic piece standpoint, all right,
Okay.
don't logo chase. All right. What's for
Mm.
you is going to be for you. You know,
Okay.
don't logo chase, because ultimately, you know, like I know, and especially being in your realm and what you've done in that South Florida area with just your camps that you used to host. And I saw when
Mm-hmm.
your camps come from the ground level, you really
Oh
got it
yeah.
from the mud. You know what I mean? And
Oh
it
yeah.
blew up. But
Oh yeah.
I'm saying that because, you know, whether you a 2-star or a 5-star, at the end of the day, to me, all that's subjective. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And what's going to be for you is going to be for you. Because just because that
Right.
5-star going to University of Florida does not mean he's going to succeed. You know what I mean? Or
Correct.
does not mean he's going to be this guaranteed first round pick or whatever. Now, true enough, he's going to Florida. He's going to have more resources, yada, yada, yada. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can see that from an external standpoint. But ultimately, what's going to be for you is going to be for you. So continue to just
Right.
run your race, but don't logo
Right.
chase. You know what I mean? Don't
That's a good
logo
one.
chase. You know what I mean? And I would think that if that was just had the one thing I could tell him, don't logo chase. You know, just run
Good.
your race, you know, and whether you like it or you don't, that's the adversity that you're facing. So how are you going to turn that and flip that to use that as motivation for you? You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
But that
Yep.
that, that would be my what you call it. But then also too, don't let society make you think that education ain't important. You better this thing you better use whatever sport that you're playing as a vessel for your education. Whether you getting learning a trade, whether whatever. You see what I'm saying? Because ultimately, you got to be prepared for life after football, baseball, whatever. You know what I mean? Whether it extends your
Yeah.
life an extra 4 to 10 plus years, it's gonna come out. It's gonna run out eventually. So that's what I would give advice to these young bulls today.
And that's a good one. That's a good note right there. Take me inside of the most intense recruitment meeting, staff meeting, most intense college recruitment staff meeting that you've been a part of. How does it start? What gets talked about?
Mhm.
How do kids get offers? Or, you know, like, when you guys go through your recruitment boards and those staff meetings, how are they, man? How involved and intense can they get?
They can. You know, I've only honestly been a part of maybe 2 or 3 like really intense recruiting deals. And I credit
Okay.
that to the 2 head coaches that I've been up under, especially the one that I was up under for 6 years at Grambling State University. He
Okay.
kind of set the tone for recruiting, to whereas it wasn't so much a jockeying for position type deal. Even though a lot of coaches, you know, were trying to jock for that position, he set the baseline and the matrix from the get-go. Hey man, this is what we're gonna follow. You know what I mean? And we're gonna stick to it. You know, this is how I want this recruiting deal to go. But the biggest thing is you got the coaches that, of course, everybody has different recruiting areas, you know, and of course, you know, some coaches are trying to put their bid in to be the recruiter of the year. So of course they're bringing their guys from whatever environment or whatever state or whatever area that they have to the table. And of course they're always the 5-star. You know what I mean? No, this the guy, whatever, you know. But I think that, like I said, the coach that I had, man, you know, basically, I'm gonna show you how our deal went. So, say you're a defensive back coach, I'm a receivers coach. All right.
Okay.
My responsibility, I have the state of Georgia from a recruiting standpoint, and then I have a certain part of the state of Louisiana. Let's say I have the southeast part of Louisiana as well. So my job is to gather all the information from that area with the quote unquote top prospects from as many high schools that I can blitz in that area, and then also the state of Georgia. Once I gather all that information, all right, I bring that information, I filter the DBs out, and I bring that information to you. All right.
Okay.
Now, we were told to look initially, all right, your initial thing is you got to look at it from, I don't care what state he's from. I don't care what area he's from. Just rank your kid from a 1 to 5. All right.
Okay.
1 meaning he's a no-brainer. 5 meaning we're not even going to waste our time on him. So basically, our 1 to 3 guys are the guys that we will filter from a DB standpoint of, all right, a 1, he's a no-brainer, meaning he already has Power 4 offers. All right. So we can throw the offer out there to him. All right. We're probably not going to get him, but at least let's try to foster a relationship with him just in case it don't work out at Florida. You know, see what I'm saying?
Right.
You form that relationship with him. What's it then, man? Coach Jackson, man, I did, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we might get him on the back end. 2 is the same thing.
Okay.
He's a Power 4 guy, but he don't have that many powerful offers, but he got FBS stuff. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So 1 and 2s were prefer, and this is our rubric, were automatic offers. All right. A 3 is a kid that, all right, you see the potential. He has some FBS stuff. All right. But he doesn't really have a whole bunch of FBS offers. But you see, like, man, this kid got a little something. You know what I'm saying? He's a kid, though, that you put him as a 3 because you want to see how he progresses in his senior year. You know what I mean? But he's a kid that you got to highlight because this kid might be that diamond in the rough that you might could get. Now, 4 and 5, we're not going to waste our time. You look at him as a DB coach, nah, he ain't, you know, he's not whatever matrix that you got from a defensive back standpoint that you're looking for. Nah. So now once you filter that, once we get into a staff meeting, all right, again, we're not looking at where he's from. We're just looking at the true athleticism part. All right. Once you get that, we get to the staff meeting, and let's say, because we will look at film, let's say twice a week for like 2 hours. All right. Tuesdays and Thursdays where I film recruit days or whatever. All right. So when it was your time to present, we had to look at 10 guys. All right. From that you filtered. Those 10 guys, all right. Of course, you, the defensive coordinator and the head coach, got the ultimate leverage. But coach always would like for everybody on the staff to also look at them just so they can give maybe a different point of view. Coach, these are the 10 guys that I really like. I've ranked them, 1 through 3, blah, 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 this and the third. All right. We show them the highlight, boom, boom, boom. Everybody agree, boom, boom, or whatever. All right. Now it's your job to, after everybody okays it, especially the head coach, D coordinator, because they ultimately had the highest weight. Even though I might be like, man, I don't really like them or whatever. But if I'm outvoted, it don't matter. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
But if it was a standpoint where you were outvoted, now we got to, you know what I'm saying? This discussion got to be made. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But for the most part, you have an eye for DBs. I got an eye for such and such. You know what I'm saying? So it really wasn't like that. But now after you filter that, now we progress to, okay, where is this kid from? All right. What is his grades? We got to tap into his home life. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's how we will filter that in. All right. Now, after we filter that in, you got to re-rank your guys again. Because now you probably got about another 8 to 10 that's on that same plane You know what I'm saying? That's
Okay.
probably equal, but now we got to filter in, okay, where is he from? With us being a state school from Louisiana, you got to filter that in, because if you got a kid that you got ranked as a 2, all right, that's from Tampa, Florida, but this kid is from New Orleans and he's a 2, all right, we gotta put the kid from New Orleans slightly ahead of the kid from Tampa, just from a simple location standpoint, because ultimately you still got to put bodies in the seats too. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And then also you got to look at your alumni base and all that good stuff too as well. You know what I mean? So that's how we would use our filtration process as far as recruiting kids. But also too, like I said, the biggest thing, mishaps that I might have witnessed, was coaches just jockeying for just their guys from their areas because they were trying to get recruiter of the year. So they can say at the end of the year, or I brought this kid in. Now this kid's all conference. I did that. But for the most part, I haven't been part of staffs like that. And I've been blessed from that standpoint.
Man, that's good information right there, man. That's gonna really hit home, man. I hope that piece of this interview gets a lot of spikes, man. That's good information. Last question I like to ask former athletes, and even though we're both in the same locker room for a long time, I'm gonna ask you anyway. So, who was the alpha in the locker room? Your 4 years, because you came in and played in college. Who was the alpha?
Ooh. So you talking about when I was a young pup or when I was older?
Let's go. Let's do both. Let's do both. Okay. Let's do both. Both parts. Let's do both.
So when I was young, when I came in my freshman sophomore years, to me the alphas were Jeff Fain, all right, who was who was our center, who was a dog mentally, physically, everything. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I would also say Shane Walton was an alpha. You know.
Okay.
To me, Shane was an alpha because of, we were all defensive backs. And even though Shane wasn't the biggest, you know what I mean? He was very outspoken. I would say Shane, Jeff, who else? When I was a young bull.
Those are two good ones.
I would just say them. And then their bark matched their bite as well. So I respected that. So you can holler and scream, but if you better be producing on the field, and them jokers produced on the field. So I would say that those were my alphas.
That's good.
Our junior and senior year. Damn. Let me think.
Good question, right?
That's a tough one. Yeah.
It is. It is. It's a good one though.
Let me think. When they talked, you instantly respected.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I would say, even though they didn't really say a lot, I would say some of our boys like tucking them,
Okay.
And even honestly, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna keep it buck with you, and I'm not just saying this because we're on a podcast together. Like even when you would talk, you know what I'm saying? You tuck, RG, and it's because I was around y'all so much and I respected y'all off the field. Like I really took heed to when y'all did speak. You know what I mean? And for me,
that.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, I respected y'all opinion, and I might not have liked it at the time, but I respected it because I knew what type of person you were on and off the field. So I would say somebody like y'all.
That's a good word. Man. I just like that question because you know me, dog. I'm a locker room guy. I'm a team guy through and through, and the locker room means something. You can patrol your own locker room. You can have a good team.
Absolutely.
And there's always the guy in the locker room who, when they speak, it's going to resonate, and that vibe is going to follow that leader in that locker room. You know what I mean? And Tuck's a good example. Tuck wasn't like the most outspoken, but Tuck was the best player. Tuck was regarded as one of the best players in the country at the time.
Right.
But when Tuck spoke, you had to listen to him, right?
Right.
You know, RG had a lot of playing experience. RG's very analytical. He's going to, you know, those are two solid examples. And me personally, I like being in leadership roles. And I played a lot. Oh, that's a very good example. DC. I would, yeah. DC Curry was a fantastic one. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, man, this has been a great. I can't wait to publish this podcast, man, especially for the following that we have, because the information that you provide is going to be so useful. And I'm just want to kind of make this a regular thing, man. We may do something like twice a year, because the information that you can provide from your standpoint out of season and in season, you got a lot of information that parents and players can hear and take heed to, man. So this is good, man. And for last thing, what do you have? What else do you have going on that you want to, you know, market? Maybe a camp coming up south. You know, they have a camp or summer camps or anything. What you got going on that you want to throw out there?
Well, of course, you know, we're getting ready for our spring ball at the end of this month, and our spring game is April 12th. We haven't set our camp dates for the summer yet, but they will be probably sometime in June, July. But you know, those really just me. I'm just trying to be where my feet are, man. So, you know, of course, me, I have a whole bunch of goals that I'm trying to get to, which we talked about earlier on in the pod, as far as trying to continue to progress and move up in the profession. But right now, my focus is on Southern University, man, and just trying to get a championship, you know, to this university, because it's been long overdue. It's been 10+ years, but you know, we got our spring game April 12th. You know, I know a lot of people maybe from Florida probably can't tap in, but our first game is in Atlanta, Georgia. I think we play August 23rd against North Carolina Central at the SWAC MEAC Challenge. So that's going to be a big deal. It's going to be on ESPN. So a lot of people to be able to come, you know, from an exposure standpoint. But I would say, man, just for any young kid aspiring to be an athlete, not just from a football standpoint, man, tap into all these colleges. Tap into all these colleges, not just the big schools, but tap into some of these smaller schools as well, man. Not even just from an HBCU standpoint, from an FCS standpoint, from a Division II standpoint. You know, tap into all these schools, because everybody has something that they can offer. And then if you're not privy to go to those big schools, all right, and you feel that you should be one of those prospects, use it as motivation. You know what I mean? Because where you start doesn't mean you have to finish there. You know, and I think that if kids come with that attitude and that mindset, especially if they have that dog mentality, you know, they're gonna be just fine. You know, because what's for them is gonna be for them. So just continue on running their race, man. And if hopefully they believe in a higher power, they'll be fine.
For Coach Quentin Burrell, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Till next time, Coach.
Yes, sir. Anytime, brother. You know me, man. You family,
my
baby.
Man.
So, you know.
Yes.